to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Eilenberger? Here. Mr. Francolino? Absent. Mr. Hackett?
Here.
Ms. Haydick? Councilman Merrickin?
Here.
Mr. Ranger? Absent. Mr. Novak?
Here.
Mayor O'Brien?
Here.
Mr. Clark? Absent. Chairman Diver?
Here. This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law. Notice of this meeting was included in a list of meetings sent to the Co-Star and the Asbury Park Press, posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building and on the borough website. We have approval of the minutes. I assume everyone has reviewed those. Does anyone have any question on the minutes? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Make that motion.
Second. Roll call?
Mrs. Eilenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Hackett?
Yes.
Ms. Haydick?
Yes.
Councilman Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Chairman Diver?
Yes. All right. We have no correspondence and discussion. Doesn't mean we don't have them. But under new business, old business, there is none. Under new business, we have an informal hearing, application number P 2016-03. Henry Rinkowicz? Did I say that right?
Yes.
Rinkowicz?
Yes.
Thank you.
Chairman, can I set the stage for this? I'm not sure if the board's familiar with what we're doing here tonight. Probably the least experienced one up here. This is actually Mr. Hirsch is representing we'll call him an applicant, but this is under the municipal land use law. You are permitted only in front of a planning board, not a zoning board, to provide for the board what is called a concept plan. Concept plan is not a site plan or subdivision approval. It is not an application for development. Will be no motion made here at the end of the evening whether or not this is approved or not approved. As a concept plan, the applicant, Mr. Hirsch, who is very experienced in this field, discuss with the board a general concept of the proposed subdivision. Nothing that Mr. Hirsch or his applicant say is truly evidential. Nothing the board says is binding. It's really just for him to get a flavor from the board of this concept. And I encourage the board to be forthcoming with your reactions to the proposals that may or may not, they may or may not come back for a formal application. But if you today say this is the best thing since sliced bread, that doesn't bind you if there's a subsequent application. Or if you say, I don't like this application with this concept, that doesn't mean that the applicant's prohibited from trying to come back and convince you to change at a full-blown application. These are not long applications, correct, Mr. Hirsch?
That's correct.
This is not about trying to prove to you that they qualify with the municipal land use law approval. This is really just, as they call it, an informal, just going back and forth. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Tom. Director Tom Shaker, representing the applicant. I have to apologize because I'm still waiting for my engineer/planner who has some exhibits to help in our presentation tonight.
Can we wait for Mr. Hirsch? You want to wait till the site plan's done? You have another application?
Yeah, I don't want to hold the board up with anything. We hope to be able to present this fairly quickly to you, on the concept. We do want to give you some exhibits and photographs, give you a sense of what we think the concept why would work.
And you're waiting for your engineer?
Yeah, but I'm waiting for the planner.
Would you mind if we put the other one first?
No, obviously, I don't want to keep other people or inconvenience anyone.
Well, not only that, I just like a consistent presentation.
Oh, of course.
Let's
I'm not
have
going to
everybody
break it up.
on the
Oh,
field.
that was my intent. I wasn't going to do half of it way
Sure.
down. No.
All right. So let's move to the other application, the Amoscato family application, P 2016-04.
Me, I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay. Do you know if you want to move that over here just to get it closer to everybody? That's fine.
Mr. Chairman, while the applicant is signing up, I would note that the notice of joining property owners and after the publication has been reviewed, they are, the board has jurisdiction to hear this matter. Council, why don't we mark them while you're trying to go? Why don't we mark those exhibits? Okay. So the first exhibit, the dimension plan sketch of the proposed walking box, is that right?
The first one is, what are we calling this here? The enlarged site diagram.
I don't, I'm sorry. I can get it first.
Oh, got it, okay. And then you have a
Two renderings.
color rendering of the outdoor dining unit.
Yes, one of the outdoor dining area and second for the area depicting the walking cooler.
So,
Wait, A1 is the, hold it, A1 is the plan, A2 is the colored rendering of the outdoor dining area. And what is 3, showing the walking cooler? The area of the walking. Counsel, will you swear in your witness? You're on record. Say your witness.
It is.
Do you swear or affirm testimony about this portion of the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Will you state your name, spelling your last name for the record?
Michael Cannon, C-A-N-N-O-N, Cannon Group PC, Brick, New Jersey.
And Mr. May, do you swear or affirm the statement that this portion of the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All righty.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, tonight's application is two parts for an site amendment for the site that's commonly called Scottyville at the corner of O'Lear Road and 71. The two parts to this application, one are in addition to the site plan of a walk-in cooler, which is depicted on A1 on the site diagram, the enlargement up in the top here. And it's a copy of that is in each of your packets. And it's also shown in the color rendering off to the side here with this buffering of plantings. We'll give testimony by Mr. Cannon, the engineer on the project, the various details of the walking cooler and to address Mr. May's letter of December 6th, the engineer's letter, and the issues that he raised in that. Second, we have a depiction in A2 of the proposed outdoor dining area. Again, there's no changes to the site plan, but an area that we're asking the board to amend our site plan to show that that is an area that we could use for outdoor dining. And I'd like to present the application in that way. First, talking about the walk-in cooler, and then second, with respect to the outdoor dining.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if there was a, with respect to the walk-in cooler, as indicated in my application and in the letter of Mr. May, we're not asking for any variances in this, just simply a site plan amendment. And we can go through the various issues now. Mr. Cannon has been in front of the board many times, and I submit him as our engineer as an expert. And if the board would like to hear his qualifications, we can do so now, or I know you've done this before.
Please do.
received my Bachelor of Engineering degree from Georgia Tech in 1982. I received my engineering license in the state of New Jersey in 1990, my surveying and planning license in 1991. I practiced in many counties before many planning boards, testified, and I've been working in a number of counties throughout New Jersey.
And from the Spring Lake Heights
Planning
Planning Board?
Several times, yes.
I would submit his
Just
testimony.
where it's nominated.
Let's proceed.
Mr. Cannon, can you describe in this walk-in cooler a little bit about the cooler itself, first off? With the dimensions, the location, et cetera?
The cooler itself is approximately 80 square feet. It's roughly 8 by 10 outside dimensions. And it will be situated on the, I guess it would be the north side of the building within the parking lot. We will take up 2 spaces, remove 2 spaces to place this cooler. And that,
How many spaces are there currently?
there are 73 spaces on the site.
And how many are required for the site?
Required for the site is 69, so we'll be losing 2, we'll have 71, and still
So
have
it's
2
still
extra
controlled.
spaces. We will be placing it within 2 parking stalls, so we will lose those. And we will have plantings, we put curbing, and we will have plantings around the cooler itself along with fencing. So it will be well covered from the site for the cooler and for the adjacent.
What about the noise factor?
Noise factor, we received information that it gives off to up to 62 decibels of noise.
And where did you get that information?
Well, it's online.
Well, the 62 decibels of
Well, the 62
that comes
decibels came from the manufacturer.
the manufacturer.
But as far as comparative levels, they say that 60 decibels is equivalent to a conversation in a restaurant, actually. They give that. And they...
A noisy restaurant or a quiet?
And it's also an air conditioning unit 100 feet away.
Is it equivalent?
Gives 60 decibels. So,
And when they go through all this analysis, just from your research, is that loud, quiet?
Oh, no, that is quiet. They give 70 decibels is the base range for sound. A jet aircraft is 150 decibels, and it goes down from there. So it's actually...
Let me interrupt, okay? You understand that the state model noise ordinance provides for decibels up to 65 decibels to 10 o'clock. And then if the municipality adopts that type of criteria, you can have no more than 50 decibels after 10 o'clock. That's the state criteria under the Noise Pollution Control Act. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar if this was go down to 50 decibels.
I'm just saying, the Noise Pollution Control Act has prompted state regulations and the model noise ordinance and the regulations that are enforced by the Monmouth County Board of Health as it relates to noise has a 65 decibel limit before 10 and a 50 decibel from 9 in the morning till 10 at night, and then a 50 decibel limit from 10 through 9, the other side of that.
Well, there's other walk-in boxes for other restaurants.
I'm just saying, I want to make clear for the record, he said that there was some thing called the 70 baseline. There's no, you have to tell me
That's
where you're
just-
getting your baseline, because the state Noise Pollution Control Act has a different baseline.
No, it's not a baseline. I'm talking about just in comparative noise levels. They have 70 decibels as a base, and then actually 60 decibels, although 10 points less, is actually half the noise of the 70, and that's what I'm getting at. And then 50 decibels would be a quarter of 70 decibels. 80 decibels is twice.
I know all about this in
That's
public
it.
works.
I'll just-
And as you've got the manufacturer's high decibel rate there, can you describe some of the landscaping around it and if that would have an impact on the sound as
Yes.
well?
That would have an impact because we are proposing like I said, fencing, 6-foot-high vinyl fencing, it'll be solid fencing around the unit, as well as landscaping, 8-foot, some type of evergreen, either arborvitae or even cypress.
How tall is the box?
The box itself is 8 feet high.
And is the unit that's creating the noise on top of the box
Yes,
or
it is.
behind it?
It's on top of the box.
Yes.
And how high is that unit?
I believe that's 2 feet.
So it's actually 10 foot high
Yes.
to the top of that unit.
To the top of the
So
unit.
perhaps we should be looking at plantings that are equivalent to that.
Well, we're planting 8-foot-high
No,
bush.
you're playing 8 foot high to the
Yeah,
top of the
and
box.
they'll,
Mr. Hackett's referring to the top of the unit on top of the box.
yes.
So should that
was
be
an
10
issue,
feet?
between 8 and 10 feet, we work that out, whatever they want there. Usually planting at 8 to let it mature and to fill out would be the right thing to do, but if you want to start at 8, you certainly could. That's not an issue.
Also, you mentioned it comparatively to air conditioning units. Is there a similarly decibel air conditioning unit within that, within the development?
Actually, there's an AC unit, there's a condenser right on the sidewalk next to the unit
Okay.
itself.
Thank you.
And how many feet is that? We have Wickham Manors behind, is what's behind this, correct? This is the back of the building, the back of the second.
I think the best picture is this color one. It's right, like on this one, right?
Yeah,
It's right there.
Yeah,
exactly.
We know how many
So
feet
that
that
gives
is.
you an overview of it.
Oh, and there's plantings already.
Yes, there are plantings, there's an entire parking lot between the building and the units.
That one also gives you a good overview of all the parking.
Nice. You can see the spaces there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just a good amount of space there. And with respect to the plantings, just to continue on that for a moment, the site plan shows a number of plantings between the parking lot and Wickham Manor.
Yes, that's right.
And with regard to this application as it had originally been presented, have those plantings been completed?
Yes, they have been completed.
And they were completed this past summer?
Yes, they were.
Okay, so they're immature, waiting to go
We
through a
have not
growing
had a
season?
full growing season yet.
Okay, so those should start to fill in as well.
Yes, exactly.
So,
And to answer your question, I think I read 140 feet from the building to the property line.
and that would be from the north, the southwest corner of the building, so this would be a little bit more than that, but 140 plus feet.
Wait, could you clarify that, 140 feet from the,
From the buildings,
not from the building, from the cooler, from the walk-in cooler?
yeah, well, the property line itself angles, so it's going to be about the same. So, 140 feet out from the corner of the unit to the property line.
And how close is it to the closest resident? How many feet, do we know? Closest residential building?
We're well off the setback.
Yeah, well, we're behind the building there, I believe there's another unit structure at the corner here. It would be approximately 24 feet.
So the property line is 24.8
24 feet
feet,
from the property line.
and then to the house, I don't know what the setback is there.
Probably another 6 feet, so 30 feet.
What is the main reason why you guys are proposing to put that outside? Is it just cost, is it space? Why can't it be inside the building?
Well, we can go into that in a little bit more detail, but Mike, can you give the overall?
Oh, yeah, it is just space within the restaurant itself. We would be losing tables and disrupt the flow of the area and the workable area in the kitchen, so that's why we decided.
Would it seem more cramped in there?
Yeah, it would definitely be cramped, it would be taking up 80 square feet, so.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
why.
we're taking up 2 spots.
How many square feet is the restaurant on the first floor? How many square feet is that?
That is 2,000.
This takes up,
That's the indoor. Indoor space, yes.
and this takes up 80 square feet.
Yes, The entire footprint of the building is 2,000 square feet. You have the stairwell and you have the bathrooms.
They'll be saying the box would take up 80 square feet.
The footprint of it alone, as far as how it would be presented and located in the building, I don't know how much additional square footage you would need at that point. Would it be fair to say that the building inside would be more attractive as set up without this box in there?
Definitely without the box there.
And would the flow of the customers be enhanced?
Yes, it would, well, as I stated, it would disrupt the flow of the customers and actually where to place it. It would be, we have windows around it, and it would just be,
Was there any consideration or plan, say that, you came here and we weren't totally thrilled with an outside box? Did you have any plan to sort of incorporate it in some way, or a smaller box?
no, we do not envision a small box.
What about inside?
If it were put inside, I believe we'd have to reconsider that completely. Obviously, it wouldn't need to be for that,
Right.
but that would take a complete re-architectural view of it. Well above my pay grade, because I think that they would need to reconfigure the space for an attractive space at that location to service its customers in a particular way. This makes sense for the long term. I believe that the location was chosen so that it was away from the street, was not seen from either Allaire Road or from 71, and had the least amount of impact. Having the additional parking spaces there, obviously more than what was necessary, we would still keep more than that are required for the site.
Let me ask this question, because I'm looking at your plan. If I look at the size of the kitchen relative to the size of the service area, I think the kitchen is pretty large. Is there any way that, say, perhaps maybe you lost one table out in the restaurant and moved some things in the kitchen around, and you can incorporate a smaller box?
Mr. Chairman, we can address that when one of the operators of the restaurant comes up to go into that.
Okay.
But I believe the answer would be, just as Mike is describing, you're on that point, we're going to lose probably 4 full tables. It's just the way it's set up, because that was one of the original plans that they were saying to put it inside, but it would lose so much space that this plan just made more sense. And we can come to give you more detail on that.
Okay. You have a question?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. On the diagram you have the concrete pad, which isn't there now, right? I mean, that's
Correct.
big, yeah,
It's
right.
parking spaces.
But then you have the trees inside of it, so you're gonna have the concrete and then dirt and then, now what does the box itself go on?
It sits
Because
on
that's
a concrete.
That's on another pad.
Yes.
And the other question, which you didn't get into yet, was about where you're putting the fence around it. What about, you have a gate there also, right?
Well, yes, to
Right
get it.
right. Yeah, well, I'm also thinking because if you have a freezer box outside, you want to make sure that no one can get into it.
Correct.
You need to make sure it's safe. What about even on the box itself? Is that locked too?
Yes, there is a door into the box. That
Can that be locked?
Are you married to those 2 spots in the lot? The reason why I'm asking is because, we're 140 feet from the back neighbors. But we're only figured about 24 to 30 feet from the unit right behind it, right next to there. I mean, could they come over a couple spots? I know then it becomes an issue because then it's being able to probably be viewed from 71 or Allaire Road, which you're trying to avoid, but I'm also trying to accommodate those neighbors in that unit there.
Well, we put it here, one, because we do have a walkway going out, so
Okay.
you wouldn't be parking on that side of it. If we were to split up the aisle, you would have parking on either side.
Right.
We have windows in the restaurant that we'll be looking outside, so
Okay.
we're kind
Yeah.
of tucked into this
So
corner.
that's kind of,
We may be able to move it over one space, but,
Yeah.
if it were going to be outside, it's really the best place.
Trying to be the least intrusive spot, this seemed to be it. with the sight lines from the road and all, we wanted to hide it as best as possible. Can you tell us a little bit more about the unit itself as far as, say, condensation or how it will be lit?
Again,
And
with
lighting?
yes, with the condenser on top of the unit, manufacturer states that there is an evaporation pan, so there is no condensation coming down onto the ground. So we do not have any drainage problems with the unit itself.
No water comes down. There's at least one other property in this town where I'm constantly stepping over the water from your air unit, so there's no.
Yeah, this has a self-contained evaporation pan.
And just to follow up with respect to the site plan aspect of this, Mr. Gannon, do you believe a variance is required here? And in connection with Mr. May's letter, did he require no variances?
We're not requiring any variances, seeking any variances. We are not increasing any impervious coverage, and we're not going below our farm command, so we're not seeking any variances.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to the walk-in cooler, that's all we have to put on. If there are any other questions, I think it would be appropriate for Mr. Gannon.
One thing, I just noticed on where site plan review, they mentioned about how it would be powered, the review.
There will be underground power. We're not going to have any overhead lines or any extension cords going out there. There will be conduit.
Going back to the idea that it's comparable to the air conditioning noise, have there been any complaints on the site about the noise of your air conditioning units?
None that I know of. None. Mr. May might.
None that I've heard of, but.
Okay.
A question on the condenser, if that's what you call it, for on top of the unit. How many other outdoor walk-in coolers are in Spring Lake Heights?
I'm not really sure.
Mr. May, there may be a question for Mr. May.
Do we know?
I would probably say, aware of, which have on, behind,
St. Stephen's, I think, runs on those.
It's in the garage.
It's in the garage.
Yeah.
I mean, the one of the tap outs is just out in the parking lot.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, one of the reasons I ask is because where I work, there is a walk-in cooler with a condenser on a very low roof, and it is impossibly loud. We don't even open our windows because of the noise. Now, it's a lot closer than 140 feet, but I'm concerned about this property being butting up right next to a residential neighborhood, because once you put it in, there's no way to get it out or take it off or quiet it down. And like Mr. Collins said, and I just pulled it up on my phone, the model noise ordinance, we could, print it out and review it, but once it's there, there's going to be nothing for anyone to do if the noise is a problem, and I really feel like it could be put inside the restaurant, and it not become a noise issue.
We could, can I interrupt just for a second? I don't want to mislead the board, okay? But as an expert, I would respectfully suggest you really got to testify as to the noise impacts. If there's a 61 decibel reading at the storage box,
I think he said it was 60.
okay, and I'm not at 60 or whatever it was, 60. I'm not an expert. I just know I've dealt with in the middle of a huge litigation just about noise impacts. The fact that it generates whatever decibel level at the source is completely irrelevant. What is actually relevant is the noise that will be heard by the nearest resident bordering residential property. As I'm sure you would testify, the fact that you put a single line of bushes, landscaping, you need a solid, dense buffer for a particularly long run to attenuate noise an appreciable decibel level. What attenuates, can we agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, and the attenuation of noise is best accomplished by sound, a sound barrier, which is what they put up on the turnpike, because they can't violate the State Noise Pollution Control Act So those big cement barriers, those people right on the other side, they're not getting hit. But the real testimony needs to be, what is the depth, because you can extrapolate, assuming the correct conditions, because wind affects noise, humidity affects noise, or relative barometric pressure. The issue is, what is the noise at the nearest residential property line? Because the attenuation of noise over 140 feet, depending on certain factors, could bring it down to 40 decibels, which is whispering to each other. So, and I just want to make the record clear that I believe he was testifying that the decibel level at the machine was 61. You weren't testifying the decibel level at the property line adjoining a residential use. Am I right?
Correct. The decibel level at the source is 62. So what it is 140 feet away would be less.
But how less you don't know. All depends on angle, conditions, all that stuff. But generally, you can extrapolate that noise level, which is something.
And we'll assume that it goes down, but one thing we could talk about was an 8-foot-high fence, and certainly we could increase that size to bring it up to the level, and certainly bring that down significantly, I would think. That 8 foot was just a proposal in there, but absolutely.
Well, I think, you understand the point that everyone was making in the sense that when you have a business such as, we had an application years ago about Dunkin' Donuts and whether to have a drive-through. That was turned down because it abutted a residence. And I think that's the big concern here is that, we're talking about, Wickham Manor is further back, obviously, than what's directly north. And directly north there are a few residences right there, which are closer. So obviously, as trying to balance between, where everyone's living and what they can handle in terms of where they are, and, everyone knows where they bought their home. But at the same time, we want to be respectful of, their right to live there peacefully. So I think that's, my question would be, obviously, if that machine is on top, and say it's 62 decibels at the unit, that it's on top, it could actually project that sound. So I'm a little concerned about that.
In 62 decibels, let's go back to that. From the research out there, and Mr. Collins knows better, what I saw it being compared to quiet office, background music, and they describe this in the list as fairly quiet. A normal conversation at 3 to 5 feet. I think once you get up, as Mike talked about, a 70 is twice as loud as 60. And to further buffer that, if we wanted to go up to that 10 feet and it made sense, we can do that with both the fence.
You can understand the concern that maybe we need testimony as to what this would dissipate to over certain ranges.
Can I just make it clear, I don't want to talk too much about it, but I just want you to have an informed decision. The council is absolutely correct, is that they try to give you examples of what 60 decibels, 65, 70. And they disagree. Some are air conditioners at 100 feet, some are lawn mowers at 100 feet. But as, I don't want to sound too much of an engineer, but if you think about buying, you're not sitting in your kitchen and all the, everything's quiet, it's a very quiet night, and you can hear the drip from your faucet. Okay, that probably pushes out the decibel of something ridiculously low. The issue of intrusive sound has nothing really to do with the level of sound. It's the difference between the background level of noise and the noise being generated. So if you're sitting in here or discussing these things, it's not driving anybody crazy. We're in a process. The issue is what is the difference? I mean, maybe lawyers talking also drive people nuts, but.
And we're likely over 62 decibels.
So I just wanted to, I'm just trying to give the board some guidance. It's not that it's a good thing, bad thing,
But the background noise makes a difference.
Yeah, think about it. If you're sitting.
I want 71.
I'll give you the best, if you're over, if everyone may know the 3L, sandbar, UL, etc. So that's in the middle of a huge noise issue. Well, when you're near a train track and you're near the Route 35 bridge and you live near that, there's a different noise level in the background in your life. particularly during the summer when all the people coming in and out, than it is, a mile inland on the hills, behind the Manasquan Alpha. Same thing here is that you have different background levels. Closer to 71, a different sound level, even if you're referencing.
71 probably can create a higher
Background level.
But it's not consistent.
Yeah, and that's, it's also called percussive noise, is that when you hear, for example, boxes that turn on and off, does that change, is that more noticeable? No one hears the train, doesn't hear a train track, eventually you don't hear the trains going by. That's the truth of it. But interval noise is also a factor in how we put things in. But I don't want to talk too much, but that's the 61 decibels there is for the people that are going into the box. It's not the people that are enjoying the property.
I would say it probably is fairly innocuous. However, with respect to the concerns, we still could increase the size of the plantings around, fence around it, to soften that even more.
And this will run 24 hours a day, correct?
It'll run when it's on, just like any other refrigeration unit like yours in the kitchen. And I would probably point out also that compared to the one you were talking about before that you have a problem with, this is state-of-the-art, brand new. I'm sure
This
that,
one's brand new, put in this summer.
well, it depends on the sizing too. Maybe that one's spec'd out something else.
Well, no, true, and, I am not disagreeing with you, but the closest on the north side is 40 feet?
Yeah, probably closer to 30. We don't really know. We're 25 feet from the property.
So 30 feet to the closest residence.
To the corner of the building.
Less than that.
No talking from the public, please.
Yeah, we don't have how far they're set back off their sideline.
So could you, and I'm assuming maybe you can't answer this question, but as Mr. Collins pointed out, so the measurement between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. can be no higher than 50 decibels measured at the property line to a residence. Can we guarantee that it's never going to get above that 24 hours a day?
Well, we have to get some measurements of what the readings are at the property line when the unit's in place. We can check with the manufacturer, see if they actually have some noise baffles that can go on top of the unit, instead of depending upon plantings and that, if they actually have a noise barrier that they have for the unit itself.
It's in our interest as well that this be as quiet as possible. We have renters in there, you've got people at the restaurant using the site. You're not looking to make anything loud, obnoxious.
So you guys are okay with it being outside?
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I really don't think this is a problem at all. When you're talking about a quiet conversation, and I believe we're probably much louder than that right now, at 62 decibels, 3 to 5 feet on a private conversation. I can't imagine it really being an issue. And we can check into the site.
Any other questions? Other questions? Next. What are we covering next?
Next is our outdoor dining area, and Mary Ann, if we could come up, please. All right, thank you.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony about this which is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Could you state your name, spelling your last name for the record?
Mary Ann Stoll, S-T-O-L-L.
Okay, Mary Ann, can you explain what your connection to this site is?
Yes, I am going to be opening Marigold. I will be the owner of the business. I grew up in Spring Lake. I live in Spring Lake, Florida. I used to own Sisters Cafe in Spring Lake for 8 years until I got married and had kids and needed to do that. So excited. As soon as I saw the original renderings and the co-star, I knew that that was the spot for me. I've been looking for a restaurant spot. But living in Spring Lake Heights, growing up here, my kids go to Spring Lake Heights School. It's right between school and my house, perfect spot. I think the buildings are beautiful, and we're just so looking forward to it.
I shared with you the engineering letter from Mr. May dated December 6th. In Mr. May's letter, he went through a number of questions and issues for us to discuss tonight, or to at least assure the board on what we're doing. The first question, I guess, in general, is there are many pedestrian corridors, height issues with respect to umbrellas and the like, and distances from buildings for corridor access. Is your intention that all of your outdoor seating meet that exactly?
Yes.
And you will not pre-done that? Okay. Mr. Chairman, without bringing, Mike back up, I just submit that we will comply with all those issues and things that were brought up by Mr. May. Including blocking access to public amenities, clearance for walkways, and the like. A number of things that are more to your ownership and operation. Can you describe the type of outdoor seating you're going to be putting out there?
Yes, we're going to be doing durable metal, hopefully the chairs.
Can you speak up, please?
I'm sorry. Durable metal, either cast iron or aluminum.
For the tables and chairs?
The tables and the chairs. Things that can be, not easily moved, nothing that can be blown away. The umbrellas, as states here, will be taken down every night. So, quality, beautiful.
And where would wait stations be? I don't see any marking out here for saying a waitress station, waiter station. Is that going to remain inside?
It will, if need be, the busiest times, if we need pitchers of waters, things like that, it can be on the back of the building, out of sight from everyone.
And that would be movable, so you move it back?
Absolutely, yeah. It
So
would
it could
just
be
be
moved
set
back
up
in the building?
during, yeah, it would just be a table set up during service to help the servers.
Did you consider lighting for the area?
We, as of right now, we're just going to be serving breakfast and lunch, so there would not be any need for that, and it would obviously be seasonal as well.
In the future, when you're serving dinner, lighting and start, what kind of lighting would you use on?
We would just do candles or the little twinkle lights we would put under an umbrella.
Under the umbrella? There would be no other separate lighting put up?
So eventually your plan is to serve dinner?
Yes, perhaps.
You would like to do that?
Yes, I would like to, yes, yes.
Okay. If the need arises, that would be
Absolutely.
absolutely good.
To do, if we were to do, rehearsal dinner, something like that, in the nice weather months, it would be nice to have the.
Staying on that point, if you were to have dinner, would it be seasonal, would it be all year round? What would your expectations be?
Year round.
Do you have a light on? So it would be a BYOB, is that what you?
Yes, it would.
And would you use propane heaters or anything like that outside?
No,
So it would be really weather dependent as it goes to the year round?
yes.
Okay. So the hostess stand, we talked about, and specifically to Mr. May's item 3F, that would be inside for all purposes other than the temporary use on occasion?
Yes.
Would there be any other planters or fences or anything that you would be using to put a block for the space or blocking the pedestrian walkways?
No.
So it would be like this, but simply just adding the tables and the like?
Yes.
Okay. You intend, again, just following a couple of items that Mr. May highlighted, will there be any extension cords or lighting type things going across that cause hazards?
No.
High point, especially with the decibel level discussion, any loudspeakers or anything to that effect outside?
No.
Okay, so that will
No
not...
piped-in music or anything?
Not outside.
Okay. And can you describe what you plan on the maintenance of that area to be on a daily basis?
Cleaned up every day, obviously, nothing left on the tables. If there's any things spilled, we'll have hose outside, everything that goes down. We do have drainage in the back, so we're all set with that.
And what about the tables in the off-season?
They will be taken away,
Stored offsite?
yes.
And from just another question, for hosing down the area, you wouldn't be using any like harsh chemicals that are gonna run off? or-
Absolutely not.
What kind of drainage is in the back?
There's 2 drains that go down into the dry well.
Oh, into the driveway.
Yes.
And those are located right in the patio area where the tables are going to be?
Yes.
So it wouldn't be run off onto
No,
neighbor's
they're
property at all?
towards the back fence.
And I guess the last question I had, and Mr. Divers touched on already, you're currently planning on hopefully immediately breakfast and lunch, and with the dinner component in the future. Do you have any idea when those hours would be?
Breakfast from 7 till, breakfast and lunch 7 till about 3, 4 in the afternoon.
Okay. And if we had dining service out there, when would, because some people sit around all night,
Right.
when will you stop serving?
For dinner outside would be 9 o'clock.
So,
And it would start when, around 5:30?
Yeah, 5:30.
That fence
With that-
pictured, I'm sorry, the fence pictured in the white fence between the property lines, how tall is that? Is that how it is? I mean, is it a solid fence like that?
It's there 6 feet.
Okay, it's a solid fence?
It's solid fence that currently exists.
Okay.
With that, I open up any other questions from the board?
Does anybody have any other questions?
Have,
Right.
those 2 parking spots that are right going in, in front of the seating, is there a way that we can have them put a planter or something? I just always think of people that inadvertently step on the gas instead of a brake or something, or put it in drive instead of reverse when
And where the guy in blue is standing.
they're, those 2 spots, like, I think if a planter or something that could prevent a car from going forward into the,
Yeah.
Restaurant.
that's,
Maybe Mr. May's got some
maybe I
suggestions,
think
that's a good idea.
bad things.
Yeah, something like that. As long as we keep those pedestrian, the 5-foot pedestrian walkways open. But, yeah, that's fine.
What's the number of seats outside?
That's right.
This shows, is it 10 tables?
10 tables.
Yeah, 10 tables of 4, yes. 40 people.
What size is each of the tables? Do you have an idea?
48 inches, about 4 feet.
Seating 4, it's not.
They're 48-inch tables,
Yes,
so that would seat a max of 4.
yes.
Going back for a moment, for the board's purpose, to the walk-in cooler. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes. We did originally when we were looking to put the walk-in inside, and it just, on a piece of paper, 80 square feet is easy to look at and say, okay, here's a square here. But then there's all the things that go around it. There's the doorways, there's bringing the orders in, it's how much congestion it creates, putting away the orders. Everything that has to come in has to get, put away like that. So it was
So when you were thinking
just,
of putting it inside, where were you putting it?
we were putting it,
If you want to go up on that diagram, just point out to us. Where were you originally thinking of putting it?
the best place would be right here. So you would have to go through the whole kitchen and into there because the way the cooking line is, it doesn't work any other way.
Let me
it was
ask you a
just-
question, Mr. Why do you need this size unit?
We hope to have great business, and we want to be able to keep everything, I don't want to have to be getting orders in, 3 times a day. You only want to be able to get these big orders in once or twice a week. That cuts down on noise, and it's just,
Was that a recommended size for the
yes,
this restaurant?
yes,
And
for
were
the
you
amount of
using-
seats. Johnson's Restaurant Supply in Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you normally go in, like, in a day?
In and out of the walk-in?
Yeah.
Anywhere, it depends on what you're making. Right.
less time we.
Absolutely. And we'll have refrigeration inside as well to where we can bring things in, but that's just going to be holding the bulk of things. I mean, a case of eggs is, you know, a little bit shorter than this table, but it's twice as big. And serving breakfast, we're probably going to go through 2 to 3 of those a day. So just for eggs alone, you almost need a whole wall of the refrigerator.
And right now, you have to walk out the back door and around to that, correct?
Yes.
So you wouldn't interfere with any of the pedestrian traffic in the front or the tables in the building?
When we had our restaurant in Spring Lake Town, we had our walk-in refrigerator was out back a little bit closer than it is here, but it was very easily accessible. Never had any issues with the noise. We had tenants above us in that building and other business owners, and there was never problems.
One other question, you said that you would stop serving at 9 for the outdoors, but, I mean, in theory, then people would there be a time when you would pretty much just close it off altogether? I mean, or could people stay there like till 10? What time would you actually close it?
Well, dinner service would stop at 9 o'clock, so
Right.
most people would probably be arriving by 8:30, and hopefully leaving
So
before
last
10
orders
o'clock.
would be by
But I
9.
know that's why I was wondering how much longer
And
they might be out.
When that does happen, it's rare and it's usually a table or two. So it would be 2 people conversing. I don't think the impact of noise would be.
So what would your official closing time be? Probably 10, if you moved on to dinner, probably 10?
For the inside, we would do 10 o'clock, yeah.
Well, I think we're asking.
Depending, installs,
Question
that
is
would
the
be-
outside, she's trying to think.
Right, but
What is the outside, when are people required to leave?
Required to leave whenever
The
they're
outside.
finished. Oh, the outside? I don't know. I mean, that would be ordinance. I wouldn't be saying, you know, sorry, you have to leave now.
Yeah, but
Your intent
they
is
would
to
have
stop service,
Right.
No.
and the normal course of a dinner
Absolutely.
is an hour?
Hour and a half, yeah.
So that, be out of there by approximately 10 o'clock,
Yes.
best guess.
Yeah.
Okay, I just have a couple, let's play devil's advocate. Up in your kitchen diagram, in the center, there are these 2 grids. What are those?
Those are bain-marie refrigerators.
Those are,
They're called bain-marie
and
refrigerators.
what is that?
It's where you put all your, it opens up on the top, you put all your prepared things in it to make your cooking quicker.
Okay.
And above that will be shelving where you put up your hot food, your cold food, and where the servers come and take the food in and out.
Right, okay. So that's almost part of the line where the servers come in,
Absolutely.
the food is prepared, it's put up on the shelves, they take it out to the restaurant.
Correct.
Call that the pass, right?
Next question, on the wall where it looks like there's a small sink,
Yes.
what are the other items there?
We have a hand sink, we have a prep sink. There's a few items that are missing in there, well, quite a few. There's a ice machine that's missing, a freezer.
And where are those?
The ice machine, I believe, is going over here. And then along this wall, there will be prep tables and the other refrigeration.
Is that a
And-
large kitchen by kitchen
No.
restaurant standards?
Not at all.
On the east side of the kitchen,
Yes.
I
This
see
side?
sinks, is that, I assume, dishwashing?
Yes, that's dishwasher.
And what's that other long, is that, is that, what is around that entire area there? I'm seeing all
Here,
these
that's a
boxes.
3-compartment sink.
Right,
And then this is the dirty dishes will come in and go here.
okay.
This is the dirty side, they'll come into the dishwasher, which is in the corner, and the clean racks come out this way.
This back corner, is this refrigeration you said? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Over here,
No, all the way to the right.
All the way to the corner,
Top right.
Back right.
this,
There you go.
Yeah.
that's a table with a slicer on it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see. Well, that's the counter for the register. That's the coffee machine. That's outside the kitchen.
Why don't
That's
we do
outside.
that?
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to, as I look at it, I understand what you're saying. I've seen a lot of restaurants. I'm just wondering, is there a way that this could be configured to accommodate this freezer or a unit smaller inside?
We really tried, and it really just was so congested and really did not seem to work.
So what would you do if you can't put it outside? What will you do?
We'll have to figure it out somewhere. But it will cut down on, tables will be able to have inside. It'll, the flow, this is my dream. This is, to be able to build a restaurant from the ground up as a restaurateur, as a chef. It's your dream, and you want it to work out as, and I'm going to be doing this for the next 20 years. I want it to be able to flow, and I just want it to be to work as well as it can. And in my mind, this is the best way that it would work for us.
And then from the kitchen then to serve the people outside, what route would the servers take? Would Wix and
They're going to go out the back door and around.
And then is that back door adjacent to residential? That's the residential fence?
There's a
adjacent
fence
to
there,
it?
yes.
And that's where the house is right next door?
It's over here, yeah.
And would that door or windows ever be left open?
I've never noticed them. I actually used to live in the apartment in the front of that property, and it's the back of the garage apartment, and they are up above. So I don't know what they'll be seeing or not. The blinds have been closed every single day. I mean, I know tenants change and things like that, but the blinds have been closed since I've been going to the front.
Because is there a buffer? So the building is how many feet from that fence?
They can, excuse me, it's a garage apartment, so they're going to be able to see what they're going to be able to see. There's nothing that can buffer that because it's a second story apartment.
But my question is, how many feet is that building from that fence, from that property line there? Is that fence
don't
is
know
on
what
the
their
property
setback is.
line? I mean,
Looks like it's probably about 6 or 7 feet.
right, and so then it's the fence, and that is the property line, is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, a server carrying food isn't going to be making.
They're off, that's it, no, we're done, we're at least 10 feet. We're 10 feet off to the fence and the buffer that's been put in there. And then so it's all within the plan that has been previously approved and complies, as with this.
I just have another question on the outdoor dining. You're showing 10 tables, correct?
Yes,
That would be the max.
absolutely.
And you would stipulate that. No
Sure.
tables would be added.
Right, yes,
And the configuration will be 4 each.
yes,
Table size.
yes.
And that would not change.
No, table's not going any bigger.
With the stipulation that if you took one of those tables, you would not add a table, you put it together in a combined table of 6.
Correct.
You could do that.
Right. Does anyone have any other questions? Mr. May, I just have a question on this outdoor refrigeration. How, based on the plan that's shown, and seeing as this would be 10 feet high, realistically, including the unit on top, correct? We would agree?
That's what we were told.
Correct? How could this be effectively buffered? Because I'm a little concerned with what's being shown. And is what's being shown conforming?
My first comment in my letter is the location.
Mm-hmm.
5 feet from the side. I understand the desire of the applicant to have an actual certain area she has. This application was reviewed previously, there's a lot of, the site plan. There's a lot of public comment for the original application. That should be considered. Offering this would be, my opinion, difficult, but your rendering, quite frankly, doesn't even show a box.
Yeah, that's sort of where I was
Well, it'd be behind the buffer there, but you're right, if it goes up an extra 2 feet.
Right,
It's not
Yeah, I mean, the
It's a little-
the fence in that picture isn't really
You know, the picture doesn't show that, and that's my concern.
And like I said, that fence can be adjusted.
I think I would have liked to have seen something that showed this on the inside so we could understand. I mean, I realized that the interior here, you would have a max of 56 people for dinner. So you're telling me that you would lose 4 tables if you put this inside?
Yes.
So that's 20 people right off the top you
Yes.
would lose. I'm in business, I get it.
Yeah.
And I think, my opinion here is that she also has to compete against other businesses in
Right.
town that
Right.
have boxes outside and have been able to utilize the space in that way. I mean,
Yeah.
just my 2 cents.
I'm just,
We
I
have
just
them
want to
other
make sure we
places.
cover
They
all
are
the
installed
angles.
in other places in town, right?
Sure.
Currently.
Correct.
Okay.
Not in the same way.
This is the first outdoor refrigeration unit to go in Spring Lake County.
That's correct.
No, but not in the same way.
No, I was just curious,
Just,
you know,
yeah.
I haven't really noticed too many, but I know that they're
Well-
there, so I don't hear them.
You never see them, that's the key.
The problem is that the residential units here are here first, and then comes the commercial unit. So I find it, my job is to make sure that the residential units that have been there, that we take into consideration.
But you should understand that the residential units are in a business zone.
Right.
They're in a business zone. Those residences know that they're in a business zone.
But-
That's not to say that you can't find a way to balance this. You know,
The
everybody
area is
knows where they
zoned,
are.
the area is zoned for business.
Yes, it is. It was before, it is now.
It's good to know.
And to just touch that point, we're not requesting a variance. We are in compliance with the zone and the requirements of the zone. We're certainly willing to work with the concerns to try to buffer that better, make it a little higher, but we are compliant and not requiring, requesting a variance.
Well, I would say that, and
I think that, just to interrupt, okay, subject to, of course, you know, the board's decision of whether they proceed tonight, whether they require more information, you know, how much of, you know, we have to get to the public, et cetera. You know, we would talk about issues of, just zoning issues, but let's see what happens as we go through, right?
I guess my only other question, as I'm looking at it, and so now we agree it's 10 feet high. So obviously a 6-foot-high vinyl fence is not going to work. Is let me ask, is your engineer?
Yes.
Come back up, sir.
Ken?
If we were to put, say you have a, almost like a pergola, in other words, a roof over this with 4 columns and fenced, and would that further reduce the noise?
If there's a solid enclosure, yes. We just have to watch the airflow too.
And that's why I'm saying, it obviously has to be vented properly, et cetera, for the unit, otherwise the unit would burn out. But would that further reduce the noise?
Yes, it'd be,
And can you
there's
give
a
me
solid
that?
barrier.
Right, because it's a more solid area, so we could say cut it in half?
Not sure exactly how much it would cut, but it would
It would be significant?
attenuate the noise, is what it was.
Would it, in your opinion, be significant?
Yes. If there's a solid barrier around the condensing unit.
Well, one of the things I always think about when I see these things, and I've seen a few myself, someone in Wickham Manor or someone who's living just to the north of this looks down from their window and they see this, it's sort of like they're living in Manhattan. All of a sudden, you're looking at your apartment window and all you can see are air conditioning units. It's not a great view. So, if this is conforming and this is something that could be done, I would like it to be done in a way such as respecting the neighbors in that way, and also architecturally pleasant, and pleasing to the eye.
So you're suggesting putting some sort of roof over top,
Yeah.
basically, so that sound that would go up would be stopped, and then there'd be some sort of solid enclosure
And you
around
could
the
have a
outside.
solid enclosure that's vented, it would reduce the sound greatly.
So
That's
See
something
what you're
that's.
saying.
Are you familiar with those? Are those available? Because that's totally acceptable. That's not a
It
problem.
is,
And if those are available, we'd certainly,
I think it's something that even an architect could design.
okay.
That would be, that would
To
look
have
beautiful next to the
some
building.
sort
Yeah.
of roof covering sort of to deflect the sound.
Right.
We could stipulate to that.
Or in a sense, asking them to build on the building on the property.
It's not essentially, it's more like an enclosure than a building.
Okay,
Like a cap.
but I'm just saying, that's basically what we're talking.
I mean, those units, they might require like a certain amount of airflow or something. You
Right,
know,
but
like you
that's,
might not be able
it
to.
can be designed to be,
Yeah,
be
you might not
vented
be able to-
properly. Yeah, you can have lattice venting, you can have vents on the roof, but anything you would do, if you put a cover over that and around it, you would greatly reduce the noise.
Would this new enclosure that you're calling it be part of the overall space of the property that we required when we first approved this site?
Yes, Mr.
No, that does be the accessory structure. They're not here for variance or quite
Right.
frankly, setbacks and square footage.
I understand, I'm just saying that what
The
is.
same with the site plan.
Mhm.
I'm not sounding like a busted chest, but I've only been here for parts of this application. I was here at the last amendment, there was representation made regarding the uses that were provided and what would be done on the site, and you would adopt the site plan. I don't want to sound like I'm being obstructive, but you're now here with a separate use, which triggered, quite bluntly, why the zoning officer required this process. So I want to be careful with respect to, the zoning officer has made a ruling, okay, that there is no reference to an approved outdoor tables in your site plan.
Right.
And I don't, in speaking to Mr. May, seeing this letter, I don't know whether outdoor dining is permitted or not permitted in the zone, okay? And that's a problem, because when I asked for this letter, either outdoor dining, if cafes are permitted in this zone, the zoning officer has to determine whether an outdoor dining is a separate use or is it an accessory to the interior permitted use of a cafe. And that's what gave me a little bit of pause today when we didn't know, because this is not an interior restaurant, it's an exterior restaurant, it's an exterior cafe with their equipment, all portion of their equipment on the exterior as well. And that is the zoning officer's letter of August 11, 2016, just gives me pause, and I want to make sure the planning board is correct in saying we have jurisdiction to say this, to rule on this.
And let me
So
make
it
a
gives you
point.
pause because you don't think we have the jurisdiction?
Well, after reading his letter, I'm not sure what he's saying. Are you following me?
Mr. David, let me speak to that point. And that's a good point. And,
Maybe you have more background on it than me.
I-
You read his letter, but if it's not a permitted use, well, then the planning board's not allowed to hear a permitted use. That's, if it's not permitted. If it is accessory to a cafe use, you are absolutely permitted to use that.
And that is our position in the entire way, that there are two parts to this application. One is the walk-in cooler, which I believe, as a site plan amendment, has absolutely no variance issue whatsoever, and I think Mr. May said that specifically in his letter. That's not an issue. So when we get to the question of whether it is a permitted use, as you said, restaurants, cafes, et cetera, are allowed in this area, and this is simply an accessory. We're not creating a new restaurant. We're not asking for a different building in that area. It
No,
is-
what I'm saying is, just not mean to interrupt you, but if that, and that's what concerns me, if outdoor dining is a permitted accessory use and you violate no ordinances, the fact that you're putting temporary tables out there does not require site plan approval. You can put tables out there.
Agreed.
And you're allowed to do that, just like there would be allowed to put a podium on the outside of the restaurant and greet people as they come in. You don't need a site plan approval.
Absolutely right.
But the zoning officer said you need approval for that.
No, he didn't. If you read 2.0,
It says, outdoor
2.7,
outdoor dining standards is noted in B for the B3 zone required planning board approval. That's
you
what it
said,
says.
should, yeah, and requested whether they should require a variance, and that's in 2.7. I agree with
No,
you.
no, I'm
Now,
just reading his letter, he's saying the outdoor dining standards.
oh, I'm talking about his engineering.
Oh, no, not him, I'm talking about the zoning officer. Joe's right on point.
Right, and that's what I'm going off, which,
But the zoning officer says outdoor dining standards is noted for the B3 zone required planning board approval.
I'm not sure where he gets
So
that.
why, I mean, that's specifically what he says, I don't understand what's giving you pause.
Because there are no outdoor dining standards approved if you never adopt them. Right? So I don't know what he's referring to, because if he says you have to comply with the outdoor dining standard that you've never adopted as a community, I'm a little bit worried.
So, but then really, don't we have two different options? Then they either don't need approval, or they're here asking for approval, and we approve it, or we
No.
don't, and
One of the other options is they have to go in front of your zoning board, and I didn't want to have that debate now until we heard the whole item. But when the zoning officer says there's standards to be applied, which would clearly put it in a planning board, we would have adopted standards for outdoor dining. And then when Mr. May writes to me today and said they did not adopt them.
it just seems like you're adding bureaucracy where it doesn't need to be.
And with
No,
due
I'm
respect,
not adding bureaucracy.
No, I'm just saying,
When
it
you're-
seems like that it can be a clear ruling
No, when
here.
you, well.
It
I
seems
would
like
tell-
you're
I would
confusing
tell
the
you-
issue, I don't know.
I would tell you that when a zoning officer says to apply standards as a planning board, and those standards don't exist, generally, I would suspect that it should be in front of a different board.
Are you saying they don't exist for specific
Chairman,
nights, or they
Does
don't
that not
exist?
mean that we
Hold on.
can't set precedent?
In the B3 zone?
I think what you've got is a zoning
Zoning
officer
does not specify outdoor dining.
who works for a number of different communities. That other communities do have standards, we don't. I think he's being as conservative as he can. I do think that Mr. Collins is exactly right, that this is simply an accessory to the use that we have. It's not a separate use. We're having a restaurant. We're not doing anything different. It's a restaurant that is using an area that's out there. We brought it in front of the board because of this, but more importantly, in connection with the site plan amendment, to identify what's there, to ask the board for their guidance, to make sure that we do what the town wants, and to show you what we're proposing so that it's not an overburden of the area, or that it's something that is really adverse to what that area's character should be. I don't think we have a use issue here, and it wasn't in the application, it wasn't brought up before. I believe Joe May is correct, and
He's correct.
But
Wait.
he doesn't buy, just to understand, the
I know.
position that the applicant takes is they require no variances and waivers. That means, so you understand, under P-zone management, that all your discussion about whether the box should be soundproof, et cetera, you have no right as a board to impose a condition on a fully conforming application related to that. Now, the applicant
They
may.
can still agree to the
The
stipulation.
applicant may agree to the stipulation, but the concept of the public who may be here, if you determine as a board that there are no variances and waivers, you are required to approve it under the law. So I didn't want the public, and that's why I started this conversation, it appears to be public here. I didn't want to give them the impression that if you decide that and the applicant is correct, this is an excessive reuse and fully conforming, all those discussions are moot, other than him saying, I agree to it.
Okay, I've watched it. Wait, please. This is great tennis, but I'm just trying to see where the ball's going to
No, I don't think we're disagreeing here.
No. No,
we're coming at it saying,
I'm just trying to get past the nuance and into what we actually can do, because I agree with the mayor. I mean, if we're sitting here and we have a situation that we can resolve here, why don't we resolve it? Is that correct?
Well, I think the concern, outdoor dining is not permitted in the zone.
Okay.
it's not addressed.
Right, it's not addressed. And typically, what a lawyer would say is that if something is not permitted in the zone, it's prohibited.
Except where you
started
started
raised
with.
tonight was your zoning officer indicated that it was permitted because you had adopted standards related to outdoor seats, outdoor dining, which is obvious. If you adopt an ordinance,
You
it
also
says
said
your
that was
outdoor
our
dining, the tables have to be X and Y, and you have to close down by 10, whatever your standards are. And when Joe sent me a note that said he's referring to standards that the community did not adopt, that's what created the problem.
But he also says that it's the zoning board's, the planning board's decision to make.
No, he said that the planning board had to apply the standards that were adopted in the D3 zone, and he was clear, currently in the statement.
Well, I'm reading his letter, to Neil Hamilton.
August 11th, read the second letter, the second sentence in the second paragraph.
Yeah, it says the outdoor dining standards, as noted for the B3 zone, require planning board approval.
Right, so you would, as a planning board, review a site plan consistent with the standards of the B3 zone. That's what it says, right? And that's what requires site plan approval. But he never adopted those standards. That's what Joe's done. Right, Joe? So
You're saying it's not a permitted use?
I'm not
I
saying
didn't
that.
say that.
I'm not saying
Well,
that.
that's not, not
I'm not
exactly.
saying that. The question is, what's, you're a planning board, you apply standards, you apply buffers, impervious coverage, you're listing the standards. And it just caused me concern, I was going to raise it at the end, after we heard the public, et cetera, is to say, you sent here for you to review certain standards which don't exist.
Except that, I do go back to Mr. May's letter of December 6th, and he listed, many, very specific items that are clearly concerning the board, which we will meet every single one of them. The point being to show you that our intention is to act exactly as your board engineer has requested.
But just to be clear, those items that you listed were not taken from any standards because we haven't adopted any standards. Okay.
So I didn't want to pose it to him, but the lawyers talking to me, and usually board members are better at being practical, so I have no problem with that than the lawyers are.
So practically, our options are, if we, the danger here is that you as a lawyer are telling us that if we do, by not having any standards laid out, by not specifying the fact that if it is a permitted use, that is often interpreted by the law to be, it's not permitted.
Could be, not often.
Could be.
Could be.
Okay.
Depends on the judge.
If we agree that it isn't a use that requires variance, then we have no standing to, except to ask you nicely, please build it this way.
Correct. And all I'm saying is, as a lawyer, and I understand this timing, if you want to move along, there are people out here, is that if Mr. Hamilton was told, listen, there are no standards, they weren't adopted, as the zoning officer, he can say, well, cafe uses are permitted, and I'm ruling that outdoor dining is accessory to those restaurants, meaning any, that you can have outdoor seating. That means you hear it. If Mr. Hamilton said, oh, I didn't know that, to me, that means that it's not permitted. You're not supposed to.
Did Mr. Hamilton say that to you?
He didn't say it.
Okay. We're just trying to get the facts.
I believe he was being conservative just in this and bringing it in front of the board, as you said. We certainly would make sure that it was done the correct way.
Right, and this has happened before in your community that I've dealt with. I've been here a short period of time, but you've had nursery school, daycare center, elementary school, and when you're looking at what they did and what they didn't do, it was very shaky. He didn't even deny it when he was the zoning officer.
Be safe.
Yeah. Yeah, it was be safe. So I didn't.
Okay.
Do what you want to do, but if this meeting, if you were going to act today after hearing all the public,
Let me ask the question.
If you weren't, I was going to say we're going to figure that out by our next meeting.
Okay, but let me just ask the question. If the board wanted to agree to outside dining as per this application, it could.
Pardon me?
What I'm saying is, I've heard you, heard Jen, Mr. Sabitis. As per all the discussion, could the board move forward, if it so chose, to accept that application and these standards that are in here, and move forward with that application?
Yes, with the understanding that if the approval is challenged, there is a question as to jurisdiction.
Okay.
Can I ask Mr. May a question?
Yes.
So the accessory being the walk-in cooler, that doesn't appear to be an accessory, permitted accessory use on the site plan as usually zoned. So how is that dealt with?
Structure, it's not.
That's been growing from 10 feet, and now we have a roof, and now we have gables, and
Well,
so
that would be-
where do we draw the line on that?
Address it under site plan amendment, I don't think that's, I would ask them to split up. First off, if the board would entertain it, I would recommend we do that through a sketch. Number one, I mean, putting it, oh, well, to be submitted later, it's not going to work for anyone. Once we get that, then I think we can decide, okay, is it structure, is it not a structure, is it just screening, and I think that's where we'll look at that way. But they wouldn't require any variances to build a structure, and it's not habitable space, it's not putting a garage, but I don't see it triggering any variances. I don't have to look at it further, but I don't see it triggering any variances. Bulk variances.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Again, not a variance here. It's not an accessory use. We're simply making an amendment to the site plan with full compliance.
I guess at this point, should I release the public? Sure. Anyone from the public who would like to speak, please come up, speak at the mic, your name, where you live. Hi, Pat.
Hi, I'm Patrick DeWignall, and I'm the owner of 2009, 11, 13, 15, Highway 71. Excuse me, one moment. Okay, just right in there, so. Mary Ann. Mary Ann has been my tenant. I'm thrilled at the idea that you're back and all of the nice things you said about the structure. I love what Scottyville looks like. We all do compared to what it was. I understand that I lived in B3, and I understand that the whole site is B3, but I don't like the idea, and I'm in full agreement of the questions that you were asking about this outdoor pool. I think my tenants, I have 4 tenants on those properties, and the property that we're talking about, I don't know, Joe probably knows what this distance is.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can.
You can't do that because it's not going to be part of the record. You can
Okay.
describe something, but
Okay,
it's not going to be.
2009, Highway 71 is what the issue is. When this Scottyville was being built, the tenants that live in that apartment have taken the brunt of all the construction going on. They're the nicest people. They own the laundromat in Spring Heights. They're a young couple. They just got married. They put up with all the construction. They put up with mornings waking up where the construction company hooked their hose into their water supply and they had no water pressure. We've tolerated all of it. I'm thrilled that Scottyville is there. I think it looks beautiful. I love the backyard. I love the parking lot. I don't love the idea of the outdoor cooler for the noise, the condensation, all of that other stuff. I'm even for the outdoor dining. I'm fine with that. But I think this outdoor cooler thing is, I think it belongs inside. I think weather could be an issue going into the winter months, and it could be, just rusting or something.
Well, would enclosing it, putting a roof, would that alleviate some of it?
I just think it belongs inside the restaurant. And I went to Sister's Cafe when you had it in Spring Lake lots of times, and that was tiny space, and it worked.
The welcome was outside of Sisters.
I don't know how it happened, but that place was always packed. Lots of places around here are always packed, but putting an outdoor cooler in that spot that you're proposing right there is going to be a huge disruption to these 2 people that live in 2001. And if they move, who would I rent to that would want to have a lap? It's like living in the Essex and Sussex near the little air conditioning unit or something. It's like, so I'm fine with it if it goes inside, and I'm fine with everything about it, but I just find that putting it outside is also not good for anyone, you know, even with them or anybody else who has to.
Okay,
That's all I have to say.
thank you. Anyone else? You can form a line and come around.
At Corrector 564 Atlantic Avenue. I was on the board when this plan was originally approved, and the buildings are beautiful. It really does look nice. My concern is two things. One is the outdoor dining. The borough does have an ordinance that specifies there is no outdoor dining allowed in any zone. So I'm kind of confused as to why the planning board can just waive that, because every other request for outdoor dining has gone through the Board of Adjustment. The other thing is,
Sent it to the planning.
well, there is an ordinance, and every other, in fact, the tap house came in earlier this year. So everything else has gone through. The other thing is that tap house came in, outdoor dining, there were design standards as part of that B3 zone ordinance. There are specific things that were listed in there that are supposed to be done. So there are standards. And also, Mrs. Wignall was talking about her tenants. The board was very, very careful to take into account the quality of life of the tenants. And I think, in fact, the only design waiver that we asked the applicant to give up was to make 2 parking spaces 18 feet instead of 20, so that 10-foot trees could be installed. So was that done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the trees are great.
All right.
Everything looks great, you know, the
Yeah.
yard is beautiful, the parking lot's beautiful.
Yeah, landscaping is fine.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that was done in accordance with what we asked for. All right, thank you very much.
Next.
Robert Merricken, 2014 Highway 71. One of those any data on the decibel level of 40 people sitting outside eating. And get loud.
Next. You finally made it.
Hi, Julie LaForge, 908 Central Avenue. I live on the other side of town, but I deal with the trucks from the deli and from Napa. And in my opinion, if I had an option, and I'm the neighbor, just throwing this out there, you know, the humming of a fridge for more regular truck deliveries coming in to the parking lot, I would choose the humming of a fridge anytime. I mean, it needs to go through. You know, I don't go that way. I avoid Napa and the deli at all costs because of the deliveries. You know, I go out another way. I think that if you would ask somebody that lives on that block of Central, I only know because I just texted someone, they would say, oh, I would take a humming of a fridge over more frequent deliveries, but just throwing it out there.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Sir?
Well, 27. I'm one of those people that do look at ordinances and zoning ordinances. I did that when I moved, when I bought, and at that time, the lot was commercial and residential. That fight is over, I understand that. It's all commercial. But I looked at your ordinance, 34 pages, and I've gone through it, and I don't see anything about walking boxes. Anything. Can't find it. I look at the B3. I don't see anything about walking in boxes. I served in government for a long time. For towns similar to Spring Lake. It's very, very unusual to have a cooler walking box in a parking lot. Quite frankly, I haven't seen anything like that. Been around for a long time. This is not something that should take lightly. If you're going to be, you allow us that, it's a precedent. The land was
Well, just to be fair, it's actually not a precedent because there are other locations in town where there is a walking out in a parking lot.
well, let's look at Saints after the student, whatever. That's in a garage. You look at the other one, nothing is in the middle of and impacting.
But it's in a parking lot.
Not quite like this.
No, I understand what you're saying, but you said they weren't in a parking lot. They are in a parking
Looking at this, Hampton Court would be in that. Looking at the residents, Wickham has 62 residents, pay over approximately $300,000 in taxes. Tonight we focused on the customers, these customers, very important that we are taken care of. We focused on residents a whole lot, everything, and I appreciate the professionals themselves. It was Christmas week, we're all here, you're finished. But this is something highly unusual. The plantings, maybe on your side they're good, on Wickham's side, they're there, they haven't grown, and during the time it's going to different, larger. But in looking at this, the developer who developed the property, he got it, there's a quid pro quo. It really wasn't much of a quid pro quo. He got it rezoned. Now pushing the envelope for a restaurant. In here, it says coffee house or similar establishment. I don't have any problem with the restaurant going in. That's permitted. Looking at the seating going to 40, that's almost double. Looking at the parking, 73, 2 spaces taken down to 71, 69 is required. There isn't any comment about the expanded use, the intensifying use for those 40 additional people. They're going to come and go to park on that. The noise for the compressor on that is going to be, it's going to be constant. It goes runs 24/7. As far as that's going to be there. And I have had a lot of experience with compressors and what people, what certain town requirements. I think this is a huge, huge push. Certainly wish the young lady all the best in this. I don't see this outdoor dining necessarily a given here. I think you have to review very carefully what you want, and that's something. But to say that we have to, it's self-inflicted, this hardship. We want more, we want bigger with us. The zoning ordinance was there, the developer came, they put it in, and now all of a sudden it has to go, and it has to be as expensive. I think that's to be balanced. And I think, I appreciate the opportunity, but I think we've given enough in Wickham and other places, and I think this would be, I think you'd fall short. That's my opinion.
Thank you, sir.
Very much.
Anyone else have comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Christine Varian, 906 Greenwood. So mainly what I'm here to say is character reference for Marianne. I mean, I'm sure most of you know Sisters Cafe. It was a beautiful place. It was run fabulous. She's putting everything she has into this restaurant. She lives in our community. The last thing she wants to do is cause problems with neighbors or communities behind her. She's doing everything she can to make this work for our town. If you hear the conversations going on, there's not one negative thought. Everyone's happy, and we're proud and honored to be able to have her bring a restaurant to our town and to make it more beautiful. It's a great location. The seating will be great. I know Keith is concerned about the parking, but I can tell you, half the people will probably ride their bikes there because we're all, as a community, more than excited to come and be a part of her restaurant.
Thank you very much. Next.
John Management, 564 Atlantic Avenue. I am presently a member of the Board of Adjustment, and I just had a question and a comment for Dennis. You mentioned something about cafes. Is the B3 zone zoned for cafes, or does it say restaurant?
Zone, the book. Do you want me to answer?
Whoever knows.
Can I?
It
It says coffee house, I've got a copy of the zone here. Coffee house is similar establishment, deli, which we're not, of course, eating places, sit down only. So, yes.
But nowhere in
Can
there.
I answer the question though?
Yeah.
Okay, and for this note here, what I'm trying to get the board is, you are bound by a determination of the zoning officer. So the zoning officer says that a cafe use is permitted in the zone. but he does go backwards and he doesn't really say anything else. So the zoning officer says that cafe use is permitted in the zone.
But is there any definition that says cafe includes outdoor dining?
My understanding of the ordinance, and I believe Mr. May's understanding of the ordinance, is that there are no standards for outdoor dining, no standards for outdoor dining in the B3 zone, which were referred to by the zoning officer. But I will tell you, the only reason why, I just try to get up, and I apologize, I just want to get it right. Whether it's right tonight or right next, I just want to get it right. But the zoning officer, in my opinion, based upon the holistic approach to your ordinance, could make a determination that even though it doesn't say outdoor dining is permitted, that is accessory to any restaurant use. If you have the space and you want to put a couple tables out on the sidewalk or on a patio, the zoning officer has the right to say that. The zoning officer also has the other right to say, if you don't mention it, it's not allowed. Those interpretations are two reasonable interpretations of the ordinance.
Now,
Oh, and we are bound by that. That's all I have to say, is we're bound by what he says.
does the zoning officer have the ability to say, yes, outdoor dining is okay here, even if there's a town ordinance that says outdoor dining is not allowed? Does he get to overrule the council?
The only people that could overrule the zoning officer is the zoning board of adjustment if someone filed within 20 days of the time they knew or should have known of the zoning officer's interpretation of the ordinance. Otherwise, it's binding.
Okay. Because on the zoning board of adjustment, we have people coming in often for variances to be allowed to have outdoor dining.
I can't comment, I represent the.
Well, no, but they do come in, and there is and Mr. May has been involved in some of these applications also. And so we do have an ordinance that says.
Okay, but can I just, you're going to comment on the application?
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, the council has decided there's not supposed to be outdoor dining, and if people want outdoor dining, they usually come in for a variance. And they present a case.
But you were just told that the zoning officer.
That they need.
But you were just told that the zoning officer could make that statement. And if it were not appealed within, what, 20 days, then it's binding.
But did he make that statement? He could make it. But did he say outdoor dining is okay for this place? No.
He said he believed that there were outdoor dining standards applicable in the B3 zone. That's what he said in his letter to the Alascato Family LLC.
Well, the zoning permit denial actually says, and I quote, "No outdoor dining permit without planning board approval."
Right, correct. And his letter is consistent, because that's what I have too. His letter is consistent with that, because
Says
he
the same
believes, now you may recall, because you've been in other meetings about the issue with the ordinances and what we have and what we don't have and what's on the internet and not, etc. He believed, and that's why I raised the issue tonight, he believed that there were outdoor dining standards. If the borough adopted outdoor dining standards, there's no question it's permitted, because they don't adopt standards for things that aren't permitted. So the only reason I brought it up was if Mr. May is correct and his understanding was wrong, he's on it, I'm sure Mr. Hamilton will want to know that. I mean, he wants to make, I know Mr. Hamilton from all his towns. He's really good at his job. He wants to do it right too. Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering those questions. Now, my statement is that this issue of outdoor dining has been discussed in the council, in the different boards, and it was clear that the people of Spring Lake Heights as a whole do not approve of outdoor dining, do not want outdoor dining. And I think if we allow it there, what happens to other establishments? If St. Stephen's comes in and says, we're going to change our name to St. Stephen's Cafe, then they allowed to put outdoor dining because they're a cafe now?
That's a reach.
Well, yeah, it is a reach. But
That's not our, I'm quite sure, but that's not our fault. We're the planning board. We apply the validly adopted legislation that determines land use in the borough of Spring Lake Heights. That's what the planning board does. The decisions as to whether things are permitted, listed as permitted in the ordinance, or not permitted in the ordinance, or how high the buildings or how low the buildings are. What's the purpose coverage? It's not us. That's the legislative body, the people who get elected, get to make those decisions.
And the
And I just want the board to apply, you know, our best reading of what is there.
Mr. Chairman, can I offer a
Please.
suggestion? Where my letter, in my opinion, outlines is not really
Okay.
Mr. Hamilton has a different opinion. We're still not clear on a freezer box. I suggest maybe whether we carry this, I speak with Mr. Hamilton, try to understand with the assistant Mr. Collins, his interpretation of what his letter means. And then make sure we get everything correct, as is said several times.
And I know time, et cetera. All I would say is, if you proceed, you understand that you may not have the right to proceed for majority.
Well, I think it makes sense to
It's
get
your call.
clarification of what the issue actually is here. That There's some, there is.
Can we clarify what we're talking about? There are two issues here. One is the outdoor walk-in cooler, which, is there any discussion or any question in your mind that that is not something that is permitted as a site plan amendment without variance in compliance with both the letter of the zoning officer and your engineer, Mr. May? That can be ruled on without question. If we are compliant.
What I would say to you that had emphasis, I think it was apparent that the board was recommended by Mr. May not to vote on modifications to the cooler box until he sees the sketch and the understanding of the intent issue. Certainly the board could proceed on just the site plan of the walk-in box. The question becomes, so you understand, that would be only accessory, that if you, let's say he says you need a use variance to have outdoor dining.
In which case we have to proceed on the appeal if we so chose on that end.
Correct.
We understand that.
But they can add, or the board can say tonight that we're not doing your site plan approval for the walk-in box because we want to see, as Mr. May recommended, we want to see how you're going to treat and baffle. They can do whatever they want to do.
Right. And that would be within their control to not do that. However, what I'm saying is that what I'd like is the board to tell us whether we comply with the site plan regulations and for this particular application, if we comply for our site plan, which I believe we do without the variance request.
Whatever you like is something different than whatever the board decides to do.
Of course.
So if the board decides not to vote on the application tonight, you will hear that decision when they vote on that application.
Understood.
If
And
they,
the outdoor dining being a separate question that we
well, it's not a
discussed.
separate question, but it's also not a separate question because,
Why is
you
that?
know, if you're saying that you require an outdoor box of that size for only the interior of the restaurant, you kind of start undermining your testimony, right?
Mr. Collins, let's back that up. I understand what you're saying, but there's been no testimony that says that.
No, I'm saying that you are proposing a site plan approval, which at times has
And those do not
52
depend.
seats and times that have, I mean, if you want to go with that, this, I'll create a record for you, but your testimony is from the proposed tenant, that she requires this outdoor box because she wants to eliminate the noise and the impacts of repeated deliveries. But you have a certain number of seats inside, which are increased by a certain number of seats outside on a seasonal basis. You've indicated that you require this sort of size box. You haven't identified whether it is associated just with the interior or necessary to operate your restaurant when it is at full capacity and number of seats. So the question is, do you need that box if you're not permitted to have an outdoor dining? I don't want to argue with you, but it's not a fair position to take.
We won't argue it. Let's just agree to disagree, because I don't think that's the way we're presenting the application.
I'm
It's
sorry,
not one or the other.
and I missed it, because my notes say that you said this, when you were asked the question about, does it need to be this big? You say, yes, it does. And I apologize.
The next step was not that because of one thing or another. This was the convenience, the best way to provide the outdoor walk-in cooler so that the restaurant itself can work efficiently, be attractive, and work for the pedestrian traffic in the area. That makes a lot of sense. Also, when we go to point 2, and I've tried to bifurcate the application the entire way, is that the outdoor dining is a separate issue. And we're asking that as we discussed, as part of a operation of a restaurant, an accessory portion of this restaurant in this particular area.
The board may, but the board may agree
They-
that, you know,
they may agree.
They disagree, agree or disagree, it's up to the board.
Absolutely, I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
There's no such thing as a bifurcated site plan application, there's no such thing.
I'm not
It's either an
bifurcating, but I'm saying there are
application
two
or not.
different issues here that you've raised. One has nothing to do with a use issue, and that would be the walk-in cooler. The second one, you've raised the issues, and I understand how you raise them, and that is. But those are two different issues.
Disagree, but that's, it's up to the board, it's not me.
Okay.
After the 564 Land Avenue, I remembered the other thing I wanted to say. When the council and the planning board was reviewing the B3 ordinance, and I think you, Mr. Digger, were on the council
Please
at the
don't
time.
remind me.
Okay, well, I will, because one of the things that I did to prepare for this meeting was I went back and I reviewed the draft ordinance against what actually wound up in the book. And in the draft ordinance, originally it was proposed to have outdoor dining, and that was removed, and that is not in what was actually passed. And I did not have time to go back and look at the
But
tapes
that
to
may
find the
not
discussion.
But
All
that may not necessarily mean you can't have.
No, but I think, and
I'm just, you know,
I
just
started
trying to
to
be clear for
say,
everybody.
I didn't have time to go back and review the videos, but I think it was removed because it came out that there was already a law in the books that said you can't have outdoor dining in any of the zones. So that's really what needs to be clarified, I think.
Well,
And for
that's
the-
part of the discussion then between the zoning officer and
And as far as the noise level too, if the board wants, you can reach out to Monmouth Regional Health Department and ask if they have somebody who can come to speak about decibel level.
well, there are state standards that have to be followed anyway,
Well, they're not,
whatever they
you live it adopted it, like,
state standards.
it's probably.
You don't have those either?
It's just, it's probably.
Just shocker.
It's simple arithmetic,
No.
calculate distances and attenuation of sound at long distances. It's exercise of.
Um,
I think you have another.
oh, I have another job, sir,
Thank you. Good evening.
how are you?
Good. I had written a letter that I thought I may be able to, with your acceptance or approval, put into the minutes of the meeting this evening.
Well,
Janice?
okay, but the,
Did you state your name and address?
Yes, I'd be glad to. First of all, my name is Skylar Martin, and I'm the property owner of 33 Wickham Manor, or Wickham Road, which is in Wickham Manor.
glad you're feeling better, but what you had told this gentleman was that you don't accept letters as testimony because obviously applicants and board members are entitled to ask questions if they so desire. It's certainly up to the council to determine whether or not technically you can just read the letter into the record. It's certainly up to the council whether he wants that read into the record so he hears it, or if you would allow that to be put into a mistake. It's up to
This is your letter?
Yes, I believe I would like to
He
read.
has to send a letter for the board to consider without being here, and I said you can't do that, but we can certainly read it into the record.
You can read it into
I'd
the.
like to read
Sure,
it into the
go ahead.
record because I think there's some relevant comments to tonight's public discussion as well as the board. The current owner, as I stated, at 33 Wickham Road, with Manor, Spring Lake Heights, I'm responding to a certified letter I received on 12/12/16 from the applicant's attorney, James T. Sabatis, Esquire, if I didn't ruin your name. I might add that although the letter may be in compliance with municipal or state law, it doesn't allow much time for a resident to review the application, formulate thoughts, and respond. Further, it appears the applicant and his professional entities have been working on the current application with the town since August of 2016. I might note that I don't live at the property full-time, so there are some logistics issues for me to respond. I reviewed the current application on Friday, 12/12/16, and put in a request for public records. That was fulfilled this past Monday on 12/19, leaving little time first response or to mail it, which is not allowed. My grandfather purchased the property with 33 Wickham in the 1970s out of builder bankruptcy. Me and my grandmother bought it. They bought it as a family retreat, falling in love with a small Irish town. We managed to keep the property in our family for 3 generations. We were the longest residents at Wickham, Maine. We had previously enjoyed the privacy and security of a wooded lot, now clear-cut and fully improved with 2 commercial buildings by the Moscata family. Unfortunately, before and during the improvements, we were unable to respond to the zoning applications or meetings. My mother fell ill with cancer for the 3rd time with countless trips to the hospital before she passed away. The aftermath of the estate took many years to finalize. During that time, the lot was clear-cut and the indoor and outdoor view from our perspective it's a clear view all the way out to Highway 71, including the traffic light, the bank on the corner, and Hoffman's Ice Cream on the opposite corner. Of course, this comes as a shock to many of the residents who are now losing their privacy. As many of us now feel we live in a city instead of a sleepy little town we remember not too long ago. I was told some selective mature trees were to stay. I was told there was a replanting schedule. Again, being that we didn't attend the meetings, it's all hearsay because we don't know the facts, or I should say, I don't know the facts. So I went to the municipal building on 2 occasions, but I was told the person I needed to talk to is not in the office and to come back. Again, logistics don't allow for this each and every time. Currently, there are some small groups of evergreens, 9 to 10 feet tall. There are other groupings of holly trees that are about fence height 6 feet tall with some longer gaps in between. Bottom line is it will take decades before these trees are fully grown to the point of eliminating sight to Route 71 and the current project at a minimum to the 1st floor level of the new building. Commonly, when a development goes in, residential to residential, there's a tree line buffer zone. Commercial to residential is normally even more stringent depending on budget and zoning. Many developments leave a thick, mature wooded buffer. Others clear-cut, which requires an extensive site landscape budget in order to create a satisfactory balance. This is not the case here, and much needs to be done to resolve this issue. Second, lighting. There are approximately 12 light poles on the site adding to the nighttime glare. In addition, the building's exterior is illuminated and interior office space. I was told the offices would be occupied during the weekdays. I don't know the facts on the operating hours for the agreed upon use. Third, noise. As with any improvement comes noise. In the last 3 years I've owned the property, all the residents on the construction side of the development have endured years of noise and construction. This is especially annoying on weekends when residents are seeking peace and enjoyment of their patios. By memory, this past summer was no exception, with sidewalk pavers being cut and laid, parking lot improvements, and constant interior construction taking place even on weekends. Noise now comes from another source, as you can hear the constant flow of traffic and car horns at the intersection, especially in summer months. Fourth, parking. The current approved occupancies used for the cafe is 48 persons. I don't know what occupancy would be for the leased or non-leased space, but with the 73 available spots, what would currently leave, it would currently leave, to do the math, 25 spots for the retail and office space. If everyone occupied the 2 buildings at the same time, it would appear the current parking is already maxed out. Now my comments on the current zoning application and variance for relief. 1, with regard to the exterior walking box, I am opposed to locating it outside. I don't see hardship in this case as the proposed interior space is unoccupied with plenty of room inside the building for the refrigerator. Secondly, my family is in the real estate management and owns multiple properties, including restaurants, delicatessens, etc. In all of these cases.
Is this in the letter?
Yes. And the bagel shops and the restaurants and the delis, all our refrigeration is located inside the building on a C4 zone on a major highway. So what I'm getting at is if the board was to approve occupying the outside site with westerly facing my property, I wouldn't want to see it and I wouldn't want to hear it. I would like to see it totally enclosed with an additional layer of sound deadening noise protection, in addition to the same fencing and landscaping as indicated on the site plan. Further, I would propose a thick blind of trees across the westerly fenced area of the adjacent Wickham property, so that we don't have to see any more of this. I would not want to see any more lighting or light pollution, especially at night and on weekends. Parking, it would appear if the proposed cafe's interior was at full occupancy, 48 persons, and a proposed exterior space of 40 persons, the math would total for 88 persons. It would exceed the available parking spaces of 73 or the proposed 71 spaces. Again, about the retail and office space tenants and customer parking, I don't know how that affects this application or how many, as far as the occupant load, how that translates into parking spots. I do know that there's no street parking out on 71, so where would the overflow go? Would the overflow go to the adjacent bank or to other neighbors? Noise. I read in one of the documents that no loudspeakers were allowed, and I heard some testimony on that. This is for the outdoor seating. This is generic and needs to be further defined. There are many sources of music, etc. with technology today, Wi-Fi, personal and handheld devices. Would this mean no live bands, no live music, DJs, radios, stereos? I feel this needs to be further defined by the board. In closing, I don't want my comments to come off as nothing more than complaints. It is obvious that the Moscato family has gone to great lengths, time, and capital to improve the site. Buildings are a significant improvement to this B3 commercial zone and to the Route 71 corridor. Brings in new taxes for the town, creates jobs, and I'm in favor of all that. My concerns are with private enjoyment of my family retreat. I'm concerned about my property value with bird's eye view all the way out to Route 71 now. If I were to resell, a prospective purchaser would certainly choose another unit over mine in the complex because of the situation. In the end, I don't see it. In the end, if I don't have to see it and I don't have to hear it, I'm okay with it. This is currently not the situation. Our property taxes have increased over the past several years while we've had to live with the construction. Please put yourselves in our shoes as residents. I want to be a good neighbor, and I have good neighbors. I invite the board and other municipal entities and the Moscato family to my home and patio to view the site. By approximation, the site directly affects over a dozen property owners and taxpayers. Humbly submitted. Thank you for your time. I guess just a few other comments that the public offered in terms of the parking. I think that's something that hasn't been discussed, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comment? Seeing none, can I have a motion to close the voice of the public?
I'm sorry, I missed the first and second.
I second.
Jim Hackett made the motion.
Mrs. Eilenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Hackett?
Yes.
Ms. Haydick? Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien?
Yes.
Chairman Dipper?
Yes. All right, I'm going to make a suggestion that it's obvious there are a few issues here that need to be resolved. Namely, the difference between the zoning officer's comments and what may be other facts. I ask that we make a motion that we carry this to the next meeting. And also, at the same time, I would like to ask the applicant to show us a plan with the refrigeration inside, and to also show us a plan with the refrigeration enclosed, and what that structure will look like. that we agreed to before, putting the roof on it or whatever. But obviously, there are some, the main issue refers to, on this with the outside dining issue.
Well, I mean, and I think that is
I think
the
we need
issue.
clarification.
The issue of whether or not they're permitted the accessory structure is probably pretty clear that it would be permitted, but remember, you are entitled to put reasonable conditions on that structure, which could include making it smaller, making it enclosed, doing nothing with it. So I think the use issue, whether it's going to be back, is the important one.
Well, I think we'd still like to see, I think the board would like to see what it would look like. I think that's,
But you would have to,
That is a hardship, and not hardship in the variance fashion, but hardship just in trying to get this place open. It kicks us out another 3 months, really. We have to put in orders.
well, I think the issue concerning outside dining is a pretty significant issue.
Well, is it possible to vote on the walk-in cooler and come back with the other issue? Don't you have clarification?
I don't, I mean, I think, I'm just representing the board, but I think the chairman just said that they're not prepared to vote on it because they want to see alternative configuration. The engineer advised that he was recommending to the board that they not approve some sort of conditional enclosure without seeing it. And if a 4-week delay creates a 3-month delay on the other side, that's understandable, and that's argument made to the planning board. But
I think we
I
need
mean,
to
it's
see
a
those
case
issues.
for recommendations. It's up to, certainly up to the board, but
I think those issues need to be addressed.
I understand where you're coming from, Chairman. We could stipulate to certain controls over that, including other acceptable structures for the engineer or for the zoning officer to look at. Again, I don't think that goes to the point of what your decision would be. Indoor, outdoor, are 2 different things. We're asking for a site plan amendment that fully complies, does not require a variance. I know there's been talk about the use issues, and we can get that, but I see those as 2 separate issues. We're not asking for a hardship, but I do think this would cause, for a business in town that is trying to open up for a time frame, for the summer and for business season coming up, that's difficult. So if we're just talking about, can we make the outside structure look a little prettier and make it sound a little better, we can work with the engineer and your zoning officer to do so.
I think there was sound questions, there was a public question just besides.
I mean, just to check.
In the sound
I don't mean
question,
to interrupt, but it's very, I understand the applicant's making his argument, but when the person you would delegate that authority to on reviewing modifications says to you, I don't want to review it, that's a decision for the planning board to make. I'd ask the board to take into account that your own professional is saying, I don't want to make that decision. It's important enough for him to ask you to make that decision. And I don't want to, I don't want to minimize it or maximize it, but
All right.
I don't want to put Joe in a position that he.
I understand exactly what you're saying, which is why I made the statement in the first
I mean,
place.
the application was deemed complete on, I think, what was the application deemed complete, Joe? December 6th letter, I thought this was something. Okay? Yeah, when it's deemed complete, you have 120 days to act.
All right, well, let's put it this way. I understand your concerns. I sincerely do. But I think the board needs clarification. I think it needs further information. The board would like to see a plan that shows that enclosed structure. I think the board would like to see a plan that shows it inside the structure. I would recommend that to you. I won't be here. This is my last board meeting. But also, I think the issue concerning outdoor dining must be clarified between the zoning officer and whatever. If no, for example, if that application is made and say there was no appeal within the 20 days, it's permissible most likely. But again, that should be clarified. We're not attorneys. But, so I would ask a motion from the board, as I just stipulated, that the plan be carried, that this application be carried to the next meeting, that the applicant submit a plan showing the enclosure and the modifications that we sort of stipulated to already. That would also show a plan showing the refrigeration located in the interior, so the board could see the effect and understand perhaps the effect on your business, and also to clarify this issue concerning outdoor dining.
Mr. Chairman, could you announce the date and time of that meeting so there would be no further
Janine?
notice required?
January meeting?
Calendar?
Yes, please, thank you. I don't have it, but it's in here yet.
Vince, what's the best way to address
16,
the...
that's 16, I got the same. Sorry.
I understand what you're saying,
But
but
you
you
don't Neil.
We're gonna do the 20th.
I don't know if the call, you told me the case.
Well, it's gonna be the third Wednesday, whatever that happens to
The
be.
20th of January.
Yeah, but...
Oh, that's 16.
Yeah.
I can talk to you aside, but
I don't have
I'm not,
17.
I just don't even know which way
Monday versus
administratively
Saturday.
to go with that,
Anniversary.
because it's all...
Friday night,
It's
so
zoning determination.
18th?
Calendar, yeah.
The 18th, January 18th.
January 18th.
18th.
Yes.
All right.
So for members of the public, there'll be no further letters or advertisements with respect to that. The board will be reorganizing, so the new board members should be provided a copy of the tape so they can participate. For those who's here, who's not here.
Okay, so I'm asking for a motion as per what I said. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Eilenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Hackett?
Yes.
Ms. Haydick?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien?
I wish things could move faster, but yes.
Chairman Dillon?
Yes. Thank you very much for coming in. I wish you the best of luck.